Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Desk. And today we're going to be talking about financial planning for currency and banking. Europe, action.
Action.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year 2024.
Unbelievable.
Can you believe that?
No.
Oh, we got excited and Sadie's
Hi,
excited
Sadie.
now.
Yeah.
She had to be part of the action.
Okay. Place.
Yeah, sweet girl. It might take a second for her to calm down, so we'll keep talking through this. So welcome back. Let's say hi to. I'm gonna turn this camera and say hi to little Sadie girls. What is he doing? Okay.
Sleepy face.
Let's get you framed back up.
All right.
So let's just dive into it, yeah? Today we're gonna be we've had a good Christmas break. It's New Year's Day.
Yeah.
New Year's Day? Is it New Year's Day?
No. It's a couple days after New Year's Day, but that's okay.
It's 2024. We can confidently say that. But we're going to be talking about financial planning and specifically around currency, but also banking. We're going to talk a little bit about what we have to do business-wise to set ourselves up for success, adjustments we have to make for our move. So let's kick it off there.
Yeah, let's go.
So you use big words sometimes, and I love it. But the big word you used this time was multifaceted. A multifaceted financial strategy. So we've been working on transitioning to work online. Work online is not the right, it's the right wording. Remote working, right? The ability to work from wherever. We've got our VPN so that we can essentially be in any country and have it appear like we're working from the US. But another big thing that we've been doing is communicating with our clients and working with our clients and saying that we're here for you. We're not going anywhere except physically. We are going to be someplace else.
Yeah, we'll still be available.
It doesn't change anything, but we've been looking at our tools and making sure all of them work remotely as well, because some of the tools we use for our business, we pay a lot of money to be able to do what we do and do it better than anybody else. But it also has to be able to work from anywhere.
Right.
And we've been able to test that successfully, that it does in fact allow us to check US and localized traffic and numbers, even if we are in Sweden or the Netherlands or Colombia.
Right.
Also, something that we're going to talk a little bit about is savings, right? So we need to, I'm going to let you chat a little bit about that, about the plan for saving, because we've mentioned in the past, flying with this animal is not the cheapest thing.
It's not.
There's a lot of options. There's cheaper ways to do it, but post-COVID, a lot of things changed with pet travel.
It did. Yeah. So for Sadie, right now, we have an approximate cost of about $800 one way, I believe. I believe it's just one
way. Yeah.
So $1,600, I would go up and say, $2,000 by the time you get the proper crate for her to travel in and all the necessities, the vet bills, all the kind of stuffs that you have to have in order for your pet to travel. So that's $2,000 just for Sadie, right? Then there's our flights, and you have to have a return date. You don't, but I have to have a return date, and
already set. Can't do a one way. It's got to be a round trip.
It's got to be a round trip. Yep. So there's that. There's our new digs, in Colombia, all these different things. We do know that it's going to be much cheaper for us to live there, especially groceries. How much do we spend on groceries here?
On a good week, we're at like a 210, but typically around 230 to 240.
Exactly.
So, and then when we talk about our proteins and everything as well, we can be in the 250, 260 range.
Right.
Weekly.
My understanding is that it's going to be about $50 in Colombia.
Even if
groceries per week.
Even if it were double that with proteins and everything, that's more than half saved.
Yeah. So they have butchers and all that kind of good stuff there. Everything's very fresh.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a huge savings for us, plus electric bill.
Automobile.
We won't have a car there.
So we won't have a bill there.
And we're going down to one car.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we were going to talk about that a little bit too, because as Americans, there's a lot of things that we chalk up as necessary that actually aren't necessary. They're pleasantries, they're things that we love and enjoy and have become accustomed to. But ever since we started working from home, right, we're over a year of you already having been working from home, but then me not going into an office and working from home as well, right? Hey, happy celebration, 1 year anniversary of working for ourselves 100%.
Yeah.
That's also kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
But when you don't have to drive to an office every day, your commute trips and expenses, and the need. Yeah. So the need to have a second vehicle, right? Would we love to have it? Sure. Do we have to have it? We don't have to have it. The need to have a second vehicle and the expenses that carry with it, we've been able to save over $600.
Excuse me.
There alone, right?
Yeah.
Thank goodness you know how to drive a stick shift. And frankly, you do it better than I do. So, that's always.
I don't know about that.
Well, you do it.
Babe, I hit a rock. Remember that? Coming out of the garage.
It was a boulder.
It was a boulder.
It wasn't a rock. That thing came up to your knees. That's a little boulder. And I defend you on that. I say, it was a really big rock and a really low car, but my heart stopped.
It did. No real damage was done, though.
No,
right?
There was a lot of damage that was done. What? Yeah, it was all. Yeah, we're not going to get into that, but the bumper buckled. There was a lot of damage that happened. But there was other damage that masked that damage that was already
that was already there. So yes. I don't want people thinking that I did the initial damage.
No, but you did contribute to.
I did contribute. Yeah. Okay.
And you know what? The purchasers of that vehicle, they were cool with all that.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was a project car for them. We found the right buyers. But nonetheless.
I'm used to driving a Jeep Grand Cherokee. This car was
it was a sports car. A very low sports car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So,
and our garage is so tiny. Like I cannot fit my SUV in it at all.
It does fit. I've pulled in there.
How do you don't have room to even get out on the side?
True. Your doors swing pretty wide. That's because we have other stuff.
Anywho,
we've gone down to one car to put out a lot of our financial requirements here in the U.S. Right. We've begun selling stuff that just we don't need.
Yeah,
right,
I went on. We sold some furniture last weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just getting rid of stuff that is just not necessary. We're starting to make these shifts in our mindset of what is necessary versus what is just a pleasantry or something that we've been accustomed is nice to have.
Right. And we're keeping our house. We're not going to rent it out because this is our home base, obviously.
Yep.
Family's here. My kids are here.
And you know what, frankly, we're at a 3% interest rate. Getting rid of that is just not a smart financial decision. Even if we got double for what we paid for it, that's a one-time versus who knows what the market's going to be.
And we're still remodeling this place too, so we have some work yet to do here as well.
Yeah. And by holding on to that, really low rate, we have options. Where if we sell, we no longer have the options.
Right.
Right.
Well, if I have to come home for something with a courageous voice, then I have a place to come. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And a car.
100%. And, navigating all of our billing stuff to be not necessarily automatic, but online accessible.
Absolutely. No paper mail
all the way
for
down.
Any bills.
Yeah. Also all the way down to how we pay our employees, because we're still going to have people working the photo booth while we're gone. So we've set up, digital electronic billing and payments for them as well as ourselves. We got in the practice of paying ourselves electronically. So
the garage entry is going to be easy for them to come in and get the photo booth equipment and all that kind of stuff.
So we're starting to put all the pieces together because our expectation is that come February next month, we're going to take a trip and we're going to visit a place we've never been to. And we're going to find that it is, in fact, an ideal place for us to live part-time.
Right.
Which means then come November, October, December, we'll see. We may choose to go ahead and pull the trigger on a longer term stay. Could be 3 months, could be 5 months, but we may decide to do that where it's more than just 8 days.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And if we do that, we are then going to have all the pieces in place to be able to essentially pack up the things that we have to have, book her flight.
We have a whole training process that we have to do with
The
her
whole
prior.
training process to get her, which she's a McNabb collie, so she's very trainable, very smart,
Super smart,
super sassy. So, as long as we're stern with what it is we want, we can get her to do it.
Yeah, she'll be fine.
So there's a lot of things, but it's all strategic. But on the finance side, we're eliminating the things that are unnecessary. We're setting ourselves up so that we can easily pivot if we need to.
Yeah.
But also we're making sure that we're not paying for shit that we don't need.
Yeah. I really like how you said doing the things that if we needed to pivot, that we could. I don't think that a lot of people would even think the what ifs. How can we, if this doesn't work, then what do we need to do to make that happen? And that's with research. It's doing your homework, doing the exploratory trip.
Right. And part of that we were talking about last week about bank accounts, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was during the show or the pre-show, but we were talking about bank accounts and what does our checklist look like in order for us to best take advantage of our trip next month? Because there's going to be some things we have to do in person and there's going to be some things we can do over the internet or over the phone, right? And so we're beginning to put together that list so that we know our action items when we go there so that we don't have to do another unnecessary trip to go and open a bank account because they only do it in person.
Right. So, here, babe, you can open up a checking account online. You don't have to go in.
Right.
Pretty sure you got to go in there. And they speak Spanish. So what do we do?
Right.
So we're going to do a podcast specifically on that.
The nice thing about these podcasts is they kind of hold us accountable to actually doing the things that we need to do, following through. Because, hey, you heard it here. We're going to do it. It's stuff that we have to do. Cool. Anything else on the financial adjustments for our move?
I think it's really taking a look at our bills here. What do we absolutely need with what we've got going on here versus what we want? Knowing that we're going to be gone for 4 or 5 months, whatever it is, what can we just let go of here that we don't have to pay while we're gone? Like really taking a hard look at what we've got going on. And I think we already started doing that when we made the decision to I'm going to cry, to let my car go back as it's a lease. And the lease is up this month on the 20th, right?
And in full transparency, we were in a situation where 1 year ago we worked for ourselves and we have to show 2 years of self-employment income to be able to just go out and buy a car, right? So part of it was forced. Part of it was, can we even prove income to get a new car because we don't have W-2s?
Right.
That's part of it, full transparency. But the other part of it is we also said, but do we need to? Last time I went to my dealership, they didn't even pull anything because I was already a client of theirs. And so what they did was they literally asked me, has anything changed in your finances? No. Cool. And I just signed the paper for my next car, right? Because I'd already purchased a vehicle from them.
Right.
And chances are, if I went back to my same guy, I could probably just get another vehicle.
We could get another car.
So it's not that we were forced into the situation, but at the same time, there was a lot of reality that kicked in around it. And part of that was we can't prove income because we still have a year to go of self-employment before we can prove it.
Self-employment for sure.
It requires 2 years here. Right? You have to prove for 2 years that you have income, which as a side note, it's a good idea to start a business while you're still working for somebody, but do your taxes properly so that you can prove your self-income 2 years in the future when you leave your job.
Right.
A lot of people will just say that's secondary income, it's bonus income, not actually do their financial paperwork. When it comes time to be able to purchase things, you have no proof of income.
Right.
So that's a little side note. If you're going to be going the route of, self-employment,
Mhm.
start that ASAP. Establish your LLC, do your paperwork, but make sure you are paying yourself a paycheck, even if it's a once a year in November annual paycheck.
Right. And that LLC is changing.
So yes, there's a small thing that's happening. Not a small thing. There's a very
It's
big
big.
thing, but it's a small logistical effort. Small effort, big freaking impact. In the United States, 2024, you have until January of 2025 to file yourself as essentially a legitimate business, which says that you're not defrauding the government.
Right.
You're not sheltering cash. You're not paying taxes. So you are essentially making an agreement to say, as an LLC, if you audit me and you find that I have not reported my paperwork properly, that I now have repercussions. Where before it was just kind of understood that that was the case.
Right.
Do your stuff.
Mhm.
Now it's actually documented,
Mhm.
and there's a department that oversees it. So if you have an LLC that's been floating out there, or you have an LLC that you've been paying yourself but haven't been paying taxes on, you absolutely must do that this year, because there are significant fines if you do not do that.
Right.
And if you have an LLC that's just kind of floating there that you've been using, drop it and do a doing business as a solopreneur, sole operator, because they operate the same way, but you're allowed to record your income as other income
Yeah.
instead of business having to file its own income. So,
And speaking of that, going into Colombia with a visa, not a digital, even with a digital nomad visa, you have to show income. You have to prove to them that you're not coming in as a vagrant, like just to take off of them.
mhm.
You have to show an income as well. So make sure that your business or whoever you work for, if that's what you do, make sure that you have proof of income so that you can actually get that visa.
There used to be a time.
I think that's pretty much with every country.
Yeah, there used to be a time where there was a benefit. I could walk in. Let me give you an example with AT&T, where I used to work year ago. We'll call it plural now.
It's a year now.
It's over a year, so we'll call it plural.
Yeah.
Technically, you could be hired into a corporation as a 1099 as a LLC, and then the LLC pays you. So instead of being a direct employee, you could be hired in as a 1099 as your company,
Mhm.
and then your company pays you. So they contract you. You could do that. You can negotiate that. And the way you would negotiate that is essentially say, you don't have to pay me benefits.
Right.
And for that, you get to pay yourself
Yeah.
weekly instead of biweekly,
Mhm.
like the normal thing. But also there would be a contract between you. But the most important thing is you controlled your money. It didn't come from somebody else. So if you didn't need benefits and healthcare and all that stuff, you could keep more money and then pay yourself through your
Mhm.
business. A lot of people were doing that, but they weren't actually paying the taxes on that. Right. So their LLC was sheltering.
Yeah.
And that doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
You cannot do that anymore. And you will be fined bonkers amounts of money for doing things like that.
Lots of changes
Illegitimately.
happening.
If you are paying your taxes and you're filing everything properly, there's no change for you except filling out this one additional form and submitting it. But if you are not doing things properly, so I would suggest get yourself a bookkeeper and a CPA now, because their prices are going to go up, because they're going to have an influx of work and they're going to be able to charge more. And demand will essentially go up, so they will have their costs increase as well.
Yeah. So it's also going up. The minimum wage is going up in Colombia. Well, it has. It's 2024. And they're also having a lot of changes as well. So we're going to have to, I think I said this in the last podcast, we're going to have to do more research around this. And we're also going to hire somebody to help us through all this.
Yeah, if anybody's looking for a good financial team, Christopher from Solo Sherpa, solosherpa.com, what he does is he does both the bookkeeping as well as the CPA. So it's not only just making sure on a monthly basis everything's accounted for properly, his team will also file your paperwork and ensure everything's done on that side as well.
Right.
Solo Sherpa, great guy. And
where are they located?
He's the online.
Okay.
He's the creative that but also talks about the concept of once you get to a certain income level, that there may be a benefit for filing as an S corp rather than an LLC, because there's tax benefits that you can take advantage of, and it's not about cheating the system. It's about using the system to your own benefit.
Right.
And having a solid bookkeeper and CPA on your side is a really big deal.
And speaking of taxes, so this also goes along with the whole navigating the financials between Colombia and here.
Mhm.
You will not be double taxed. So if we're living more than 180 days, 183 days in Colombia, we have to file. That doesn't mean that we are going to have to pay anything, but we do have to show the funds that we are receiving from the U.S.
Right.
So we'll file in the U.S., we'll file in Colombia. That's only if we're there more than 183 days.
Right.
I think you are going to have to do it anyway, being a citizen. But they will not double tax you.
Correct. Yeah. So they call that global income.
Mhm.
And what happens is if we go over the 183 days, 185, what we pay in taxes to Colombia will be taken into account to our U.S. taxes as well. So you get a credit of what's already paid here, and that goes towards what you would owe here. So it
That would be me.
it does balance itself out.
You are a different story because you're a Colombian citizen. So we're going to hire a tax accountant there to help us out. And that's Nexco, the Nexco group that I told you about. They also have a tax attorney there as well.
And the other piece of that puzzle is we're also going to ensure that we take advantage of the opportunities for contributing to the government, right? There's going to be things that I am eligible for. And it's not whether we need it or not. It's just knowing what I'm eligible for.
Exactly.
Because I would be a tax-paying citizen.
Right. Like you automatically have their universal health care.
Right.
Even though we're going to purchase private, you still have that as well at no cost to you. So those are some of the things that we have going on. And when we are able to sit down and talk with the tax accountant, the real estate attorney, all these different people, then we'll be able to come back or maybe have them on the podcast to talk about this stuff in detail. So people will have the real deal on here to know what's what.
So this is a little autofocus for you. I want you to just put your hand up like this and then wait. I feel like you're still out of focus, but I guess we'll just roll with it. Yeah? It might have been when I twisted this for Sadie. Let me.
Might have been.
Well, stunning regardless. So,
sweet man.
So we talked about local banks. We talked about taxes. We talked about local payment methods. So cash is king, but a lot of people pay with credit card, right?
So yes. So for smaller purchases, obviously, credit card is pretty much taken. I mean, so many places, especially in Medellin, but cash is still king. And you want to make sure that, you have Colombian pesos on you, but not a lot, and have coins. Have Colombian pesos and coins as well to pay with. They love coins, especially the mom and pop shops.
So currency exchange rates, that's something we're going to have to keep our eye on. And frankly,
Wise has it.
You can go to Google and see the see the exchange rate immediately. It'll do the calculations, right? So you could put in 30,000 Colombian pesos, and it'll give you what the dollar U.S. equivalent is in real time.
We're going to have to study that.
We're going to have to study that. We're going to have to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the toughest part for me, I got to stop speaking for you. The toughest part for me is going to be disassociating the two, because what I shouldn't be doing is saying 30,000 Colombian pesos is equivalent to this US dollar.
Right.
What I should be saying is this is just what 30,000 Colombian pesos is. It gets me this. Right. And if I continue to obsess with what the difference is, it doesn't do anything for what I'm locally purchasing. Doesn't change anything there. If I'm being penalized on exchange rates because I'm taking U.S. money, put it into a Colombian bank account, that I'm going to have to pay attention to of when I do that to ensure we get our best rate exchange. But for the everyday purchases, I have to remove myself from comparing. And when I've been in Mexico, I compare. When I was in Spain, I compared. And that's something that because I'd have to go to ATM and put it in, and it's like, okay, here's your exchange rate for the day. I'm like, crap, that exchange rate sucks, but I needed to get it.
Yeah.
It doesn't help anything.
And don't exchange your dollars for Colombian pesos at the airport. That is the wrong
You're
place
going to have
to
high rates. Yeah, for sure.
super high rates there.
Usually the bank to bank is pretty good.
Yep.
That's going to be your best rate. Otherwise, you have a middleman. Like at the airport, there's a middleman, and they have to
Right.
make money too. So
They have to make
it has
money
to
too.
come from somewhere. And it's
Mhm.
going to be that
Absolutely.
additional rate on you.
So let's talk. Let me ask you a question.
Hmm.
When we talk about bills in Colombia, talk to me about our streaming, because we love to stream for our shows. So what's that going to look like?
Yeah. So we have something called a VPN, which is a virtual private network. And essentially what it does, it allows our computers and our phones and our electronics, everything is associated with an IP. And that IP is a localized stamp of where you are. Your internet service provider says, here's where you are. And what happens is with our VPN, we can say, pretend like we're in. So when we're in Colombia, we can say, pretend like we're in the United States. And when Netflix sees that our IP is a US based server, we're able to watch US based stuff.
So it's not going to cost us any more.
We'll pay our normal Netflix here.
Awesome.
Our VPN, we bought on a deal that was a lifetime deal. So we paid one time like $30 for it, and we have it for life. We have it.
Amazing.
Yeah. And
it's incredible.
The thing is, there's routers, right? There's a router, and there's something called travel routers, which are smaller, more compact. And the travel routers are most commonly in the US so that you can go to a hotel and you can plug in, because a lot of times you can't actually, you have to sign in. What's your room number? What's your last name in order to have access to Wi-Fi? And those are usually networks that are unsafe. They're safe,
wide open to people.
Wide open. But also, so they're not secure. But also they have restrictions on them. There might be certain websites that you can't go to because they don't want, maybe they don't want you sucking up all the bandwidth with Netflix. Where with a travel router, you bypass that system, right? And now you're on your own network. And those travel routers, you can program them with the VPN. So at any given time, we could say, pretend like we're in the Netherlands, pretend like we're in Sweden, pretend like we're in France, or for our use while in Colombia, pretend like we're in the United States, which means all of our devices will connect to that router and therefore be functioning as if we were in the United States.
So grateful you're the tech guru.
So all of our streaming stuff will work as if we were here in our condo, right? So we should notice no change. It goes from where we are to a server in the US,
right,
to Netflix, to the server. So there is latencies as far as speed.
Yeah.
Because it's traveling further.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
There's much more work that it's doing rather than being a local, server that is pinging off of. So there can be delays as far as latency.
So no extra cash dollars financially. We're not paying out for our streaming. So got that covered. What about our phones?
Great question. So phones, we are unlocked. Our actual devices themselves are unlocked, which means we can put any SIM card for any service into it and it will work, right? Where here in the United States, they lock your phones until they're paid off. Ours are paid off in full, so we don't have that issue. We will then have to make a decision of, do we talk to our service provider and have them put our phones on like vacation mode? In Michigan, it's very common for what's called snowbirding, where people go from one place to another. And a lot of companies, I'm not saying phone companies, but in general, will have vacation mode options where you pay $10 just to keep it active, but it's not usable. We'll have to see if that's the case with our cell phone provider.
Interesting.
Because what we don't want to do is lose our phone number. So they have to stay active, right? If that's not the case, we will still have our cell phone, US-based cell phone bill, and still have to purchase a SIM card in a local
which are about, I don't know, $5 or $10. They're so cheap there.
Depending upon what your usage is going to be.
Yeah, true.
Right? If your usage is all database, it's going to be a different price than if you're mainly phone calls.
Right.
And our phones are new enough. They're iPhone 14s, so they're newer, not 15, not the newest, but they're newer. They have what's called an eSIM, which means you go online, you buy your thing, and then you scan a barcode, and then your phone takes that service. So you don't have to physically put anything into your phone. So the old way of doing things is you go to the airport, go to the gas station, purchase an actual SIM card, open your phone, put it in there. You don't have to do that anymore. We have an eSIM.
No matter what country.
No matter what country. It's universal. Yeah. And the other piece to that is these eSIMs, you can have multiple SIM cards, electronic SIM cards per device. So what that means is our US-based phone will ring and our Colombian phone number will ring off of one device.
That's very
So
cool.
they can both be active at the same time.
Yeah. So we have to do that for our businesses as well. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. So our business phones, last month, I transferred all over to cloud-based service.
And I have a Google number for
which is also a cloud-based
ACB.
service.
Oh, great. So these are the things that you have to put in place and think about before you make a move like that. And also find out what any fees, extra charges, are there even any charges are going, could possibly be. Then we have our travel insurance. So that's probably going to cost us $200, $250 total for the both of us. That's private insurance. Hoping we can use Serta. That's who we want to use. WhatsApp is cost effective, doesn't cost us anything, right? So that's what we're going to be
as long
using
as you have data.
That's what we're going to be using in Colombia.
Yeah, as long as you have data or you're on Wi-Fi, that's what WhatsApp powers through.
Right. And then like our kids, we can video, like FaceTime with them through WhatsApp, the whole thing.
Right.
So, and then any of our meetings and things can happen over Zoom or Google Meet, whatever it might be. So anything else that you can think of other than our rent, our monthly payment for our housing. I have no idea yet about a light bill. They don't have heat down there. So you won't have heat at all. You could potentially have air conditioning if your unit has air conditioning in it. And they typically don't have dryers. So I'm kind of thinking if you have air conditioning, it could be a little higher, but I still think it's incredibly cheap compared to the US. So I can't really think other than food. Uber's so cheap. What would cost us $20 to go 6 miles would cost us $2 down there. The metro is even cheaper. What an incredible metro service that they have there. So cheap. And it goes from Sabaneta all the way north Medellin.
Yeah. I mean, few weeks ago, we both had colds at different times. And one of the things that we had to do is run to the store multiple times, probably more than a half a dozen times. That's something that we wouldn't have as much of a luxury to just pick up and go do, right? Things are more planned out.
Yeah.
Or if we do it, it has a cost associated with it, right? Our cost to go run to CVS really quickly or get 3 different sets of prescriptions, near nothing because we've already accounted for our automobile costs and our gas and all that stuff, right? But if we have to do that sort of thing in Colombia, every single trip has a cost associated with it.
Right.
So that's changing the way we do things.
I will say pharmacy-wise, their stuff is nothing compared to what it costs here in the States. And you can get a lot of things over the counter there that are prescription here.
Right.
So that's something else we need to take into consideration. But you're right. There would be, oh, let me go get this. Oh, let me go get that. Oh, this isn't working. I now have to go. We spent $100 minimum just in cold medicine. It was rough.
Yeah.
So I can't think of anything else. Activities, maybe taking up salsa dancing, which that would be me. Saw the look on your face. But what if we wanted to go somewhere for a weekend?
Mm-hmm. Different than here,
right?
Because instead of spending $600-$700 a month on a car to have access to, we would spend $150-$200 one time to get it there and back.
Yeah, if we could drive it, we might not be able to drive it.
Well, no, even whatever it is.
If we're going to Cartagena, then that's a $100 round trip flight each of us. So that's $200. And then
let's run a quick scenario. So in 2023, how many driving trips did we take? How many times did we pick up and go someplace in the car? Maybe 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, up north.
We'll call it 4. And of those, because of that, we had 2 vehicles, but we're only going to count for 1 just for the sake of this. We had 1 vehicle. We're going to say our total expenses, insurance, and everything in $750 times 12 months. Even if we multiply it by 10, that's $7,000, right? $7,500 plus another, $1,400. So we'll call it like $8,000 just for easy numbers. $8,000 in car expenses for a year. It was more than that.
It's bonkers.
But that's just a round number. For $8,000 in Colombia, even if you translate the dollars so that it's not actually $8,000, but how many of those trips, if we want to go someplace, could we achieve, but we'd have to pay for them at the time rather than it being pre-budgeted based off of our vehicle and the accessibility to just go and do it. We would have to go someplace every weekend to account for 8,000.
Right. It's crazy. It's crazy amount of travel.
So we may be out of pocket $150, $200 to go do a trip to another town and visit, but we've also mitigated an expense that we normally would have taken into account.
Yeah.
Right. So by not having a vehicle there, we don't have the associated vehicle costs.
Correct.
So,
and gas is crazy expensive down there.
A super structured and planned person, which we're neither. We're somewhere in the middle.
We're learning how to be.
But they would then say, okay, so instead of that money just going to whatever, we're going to set that aside. We're going to use that towards our vacation fund, right?
Right.
So, if the equivalent of $8,000 in the U.S. worth of car cost is $2,000 in Colombia, we would take the $2,000 divided by 12, put that every single month, and then when we get to our vacation allotment that we could take a trip, then we would take a trip,
sure.
Right? So it's we're totally capable of doing that and probably traveling more there to places that we want to go.
That was bonkers. $8,000 for one car.
That was just off my mind. I think it's a little bit more. Plus we had 2 vehicles all of 2023.
Do you know what you could do with $8,000?
I mean, you take your car, you take my car, you take the car insurance we pay every month, and you multiply that across. I mean, that's
still the cost.
A bonkers amount
it's nuts.
of money.
Right.
That we just let sit in our garages or out in the parking lot.
And you and I are more of coming off the hamster wheel and living a semi-retired lifestyle and really experiencing what Colombia has to offer.
You say semi-retired. I say
it is.
I say do whatever we want.
That's
right. And we kind of associated that early on that we're setting up systems and businesses and processes so that we can do what we want when we want without an obligation.
And here in America, that would be retired.
Right.
That's a retired lifestyle.
The difference is we are still going to continue to
still working, but
we're just working on our agenda and how we want to.
Absolutely. But we are able to do that there. So
frankly, we can do that here too. For our time that we're going to be here, we'll be able to do it.
Oh,
here
yeah.
As well.
Splitting it is going to be, that's amazing. We're going to be able to do that.
Grinding right now, though.
Yeah, we are putting the work in now for sure.
We joined more chambers. We're networking. We're working hard not only on our client sites, but we're also beefing ours up.
Yes.
To gain more clients for our photo booth company, and so all of that goes into the finances of not only just making a part-time move, but still having the expenses that we have here. But we talked about having this home hub, right? And if we were renting this out, this place would have to be stripped.
Oh yeah, we would have to redo so much.
Like our home no longer is a home, right? It turns into just a building.
Like our personal effects, we would have to get a storage unit and put everything in it every single time we got ready to leave. And
even if we downsize to just the necessities, that's still a lot to have to deal with and manage.
If anybody has to fly back home, it's probably going to be me with, a courageous voice and taking care of the nonprofit, or if I have to go meet somebody in person or whatever that might be, it would be very, very nice to be able to have a place to come home to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What do we got coming up for next week?
Yeah. So next week, Chad, we are going to talk about Colombian healthcare, and we're really going to get into the I hate to compare, but I need to compare because I just don't think people realize how good Colombian healthcare is, even compared to here in the States. So, and cost effectiveness of it. There's so many people. I had somebody say to me not too long ago, "Oh, you don't want to go get anything done down there. You could come back with half your face off." I was like, "What?" So there's really a misconception about Colombia, I think, as a whole.
I have a client who is in Florida and does facials and post-surgery massage and stuff, right? And You've heard of Brazilian butt lift. There's actually a Colombian butt lift.
Oh.
And it's a non-invasive and doesn't require implants. It's a different strategy. But it's modeled off of that because of the safety practices that Colombia coined around that appeal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because you're making your butt look like a Colombian butt. It's because of of how they do it is done in a different way. And it's actually very effective. It's a very effective. I've learned so much.
I need one of those.
No, you're good. I've learned so much about like the aesthetics and surgery and facials and brows
from helping her out. Yeah,
helping her out. And but it's interesting that like of all the countries, you have Brazilian, which has been around for ages, but you have Colombian as well. And part of that's because the way they do things is different than other places, and it's made its way to the U.S. as a trendy method.
And quadruple the price probably of what they charge in Colombia.
Oh, I'm sure, but it's an in-service thing. You get on a table, you go through the process, and you're out. You're walking out that same day.
So we're going to talk about that next week.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday season. Best wishes to everybody in 2024. And until next time, keep expanding your horizons and living beyond the desk. Have an extraordinary week.